Hey there, glad you're here. Tonight we're starting with something that doesn't require a history degree or any particular brain activity. Just a bit of imagination, some light emotional endurance, and a tolerance for candle wax, dust, and repressed misery. We're heading back to Victorian England, but not to the ballrooms or tea gardens. No, we're going downstairs, to the servants' quarters. You're the servant. Sorry, I don't make the rules. So before you get too cozy, maybe pause for a moment. If you like these sleepy little trips through mildly traumatic history, feel free to subscribe, or just leave a comment telling me what time it is for you and whether you've ever been forced to polish silverware before breakfast. I always love seeing where you're listening from, especially if it's somewhere with plumbing. Now, dim the lights. Maybe light a candle. Or don't, because technically servants weren't allowed to use candles unsupervised. Too luxurious. Just squint into the darkness like a proper Victorian underling. And let's begin your shift. You wake up at 4 in the morning. Not because you're an ambitious go-getter chasing your dreams, but because a bell just rang from 3 floors above your bed. And by bed, I mean a thin sack of straw tucked behind a door you're not technically allowed to open from the inside. Congratulations, you're a Victorian servant now. You went to sleep at midnight after scrubbing soot off something that didn't even need to be clean, and now you're being summoned by someone who doesn't know your name, but definitely knows how she likes her porridge. Room temperature, stirred counterclockwise, and served in complete silence. Your uniform smells like boiled socks. You haven't had breakfast. You won't have breakfast. Because breakfast is a concept reserved for people who own spoons. Your job is to carry the breakfast up a staircase designed exclusively to punish ankles, wearing shoes designed exclusively to punish toes. There's no music, no screens, no coffee, just you, the creeping scent of yesterday's fish stew, and a brass button you need to polish until it reflects your own poor life choices. You can't yawn because that would be rude. You can't sigh because someone might hear it and think you're having feelings. You certainly can't sneeze because you haven't earned the right to expel germs in a home with carpets. Your schedule for the day includes such relaxing activities as sweeping invisible dust, fetching coal, getting scolded for existing, and laundering clothes using something called a mangle, which, based on the name alone, is probably not OSHA compliant. If you speak to a guest, you'll be fired. If you don't speak to your supervisor, you'll also be fired. If you're caught eating jam from the kitchen, they will invent a new form of punishment just for you that involves vinegar and a lecture about knowing your place. And somehow, despite all this, you're still expected to smile politely at the butler, who smells like money and wears a monocle unironically. Also, you've been awake for 12 minutes and already stepped in something questionable. Now, if you're still awake, honestly, well done. Let's gently wander through the clanking, candlelit chaos of upper-crust Victorian life and examine exactly why your delicate modern sensibilities wouldn't survive even a single calendar day as a house servant in 1870. This is your life now. You serve, you scrub, you pretend like you don't hear the rich people arguing about marmalade in the dining room, and somewhere, someone is ringing that bell again. It's probably your fault. South. You're up, technically. Your eyes are open, and your limbs have accepted that lying still is no longer an option. Congratulations on surviving the first 5 minutes. Now comes the part where you put on your uniform. It is made of wool. All of it. Heavy, scratchy, unforgiving wool. And not the kind that's been lovingly spun by kindly old ladies. Number. This wool was harvested in emotional distress and designed specifically to trap body heat and shame. There are 17 buttons. None of them match. One is located behind your left shoulder blade for reasons no one remembers, and fastening it requires either a second person or several years of yoga training you do not have. Shoes. Yes, technically, leather, flat. Pinch your toes like they owe you money. They're 3 sizes too small because they used to belong to someone named Elsie, who died unexpectedly, which no one will talk about. You wash your face with water that could generously be described as emotionally distant. It was poured into a ceramic basin last night and left by a window to absorb the full ambience of a British pre-dawn, which is roughly the temperature of betrayal. Now it's time to black the stove. This involves taking soot, literal soot, and rubbing it into the iron until it looks slightly less like soot. It's as rewarding as polishing sadness, and twice as dusty. If you get it on your apron, you're scolded. If you don't get it on your apron, you're probably not working hard enough. You will be scolded. There's no talking. Talking means you're distracted, and distracted people drop things, and dropped things break, and broken things cost money. Money that comes out of your wages, wages that may or may not exist depending on whether Lady Agatha is feeling generous or vaguely inconvenienced by your continued presence on the planet. At this point, your stomach might be making little noises. That's fine, ignore it. Food is for after the masters have eaten, and even then, it's more of a concept than a guarantee. You might get porridge, or you might get a slice of something called dripping cake, which sounds sweet but is actually bread soaked in leftover meat fat. It tastes like regret and damp wallpaper. Now it's time to light the fireplaces. All of them. Every room gets a fire, even the ones no one is using. Why? Because comfort must be preserved at all costs, just not yours. You carry coal in a bucket that's somehow heavier every day. You are, technically, still a teenager, but your lower back disagrees. Somewhere above, you hear the bell again. It's the second floor, or the third, or the bell room. No one knows. It echoes like judgment. You run toward it anyway because hesitation is a luxury reserved for people who don't live in cupboards. By now, the house is stirring. The other servants are emerging, silent and ghost-like, like sad Victorian Pokemon. The cook is already furious about something involving eggs. The footman has polished his buttons too loudly and will be punished by being made to serve soup in awkward silence. You are expected to be invisible, but also everywhere, and still, somewhere deep in your brain, you wonder if this is just the beginning. It is, and it only gets worse from here. Now, if you've made it through the first hour of the day without collapsing, crying, or accidentally setting fire to something flammable, which is, unfortunately, everything, you may think, in your sweet, naive optimism, that things are starting to level out. They are not, because here's the part that breaks people. The part that isn't about physical exhaustion or hunger or the dampness of your socks, which, by the way, will never dry, but the rules, the house rules. The long, sprawling, soul-squeezing list of do's and don'ts that govern every second of your life with the same gentle touch as a tax audit in a thunderstorm. Let's begin. Rule number 1. You must not be seen, but also, you must always be available. So, exist, but invisibly, like a ghost, a helpful, obedient, poorly nourished ghost with excellent posture. If you are seen, it must be at a 90-degree angle and only in profile. If you are heard, it must be by accident and immediately apologized for. If you breathe too audibly in the presence of a gentleman guest, you risk being accused of disrupting the natural balance of the drawing room. Rule number 2. No using the front door. That door is for people with money, opinions, and ankles that have never touched coal dust. You, on the other hand, must enter through a side passage accessible only by crouching, crawling, or teleporting. If it rains, and it will rain, you will arrive soaked. If it snows, you will arrive frozen. If it floods, you may arrive by canoe, but you must still be dry by the time you reach the scullery. Rule number 3. No speaking unless spoken to. And even then, choose your words as if you're negotiating a ceasefire. You may say, "Yes, ma'am," "Right away, sir," or "At once." Anything beyond that, and you may be accused of backtalk, defiance, or witchcraft. Small talk is considered inappropriate. Jokes are dangerous. Complaints are treason. Rule number 4. Always walk clockwise around the dining table. Counterclockwise walking for reasons lost to time is a sign of moral decay. This includes tea service. This includes clearing plates. If you forget and go the wrong way, the butler will make a sound that is neither a cough nor a word, but more like the death rattle of a judgmental Victorian crow. Rule number 5. No eye contact with the family. This is important. Eye contact implies familiarity. Familiarity implies equality. Equality implies revolution. Therefore, eyes down. You may, however, make eye contact with other servants, but only briefly, and only to share a look that communicates, yes, we are both trapped in the same Dickensian fever dream. Rule number 6. You must never be idle. Even if all your tasks are done, even if the house is spotless and the family is asleep and the silver has been polished to the reflective sheen of a holy relic, do not rest. Find something to do. Polish the banister again. Iron a handkerchief that no one will use. Rearrange the potatoes by emotional weight. Anything. Idleness is suspicious. Stillness is suspicious. You are at all times either working or preparing to work or regretting that you stopped working even for a second. Rule number 7. Do not, under any circumstances, use the master's lavatory. Your bathroom, such as it is a hole in the ground behind the stable that smells like betrayal and frostbite. The upstairs lavatory is off limits. Even looking at it too long is frowned upon. If you are caught near it, you must pretend to have gotten lost, been sleepwalking, or temporarily blinded by the glare from the family's monogrammed soap. Rule number 8. If you faint, do it quietly, preferably in a linen closet or behind a decorative screen. Fainting in the hallway is disruptive. Fainting in the parlour is unforgivable. If you must collapse, do it in a ladylike fashion and try not to bleed on anything embroidered. Rule number 9. Your personal life is to remain theoretical. You may not date, marry, write letters, or express interest in anything resembling affection. If you have a sweetheart, keep it secret. If you have a crush on the footman, bury it deep beneath the coal pile and pretend it never happened. Romantic entanglements are the first step toward distraction, scandal, and possibly spontaneous combustion. Rule number 10. The rules may change at any moment, without warning, without logic, because someone read something in a magazine or had a dream, or simply decided that the hallway rug now counts as a sacred zone that may not be touched with left feet. Your job is to nod, accept it, and adapt, because arguing with the rules is like arguing with gravity, technically possible, but guaranteed to end with bruising and humiliation. By now, you may be wondering if these rules were designed to slowly unravel your grip on reality. They were, and it's working. And so, let's imagine, somehow, you've survived the morning shift. You haven't fallen down a flight of stairs, broken a vase, or offended the housekeeper by breathing too audibly near the parlour. A miracle, truly. The masters of the house are stirring upstairs, probably still tucked into featherbeds the size of small countries, calling softly for tea as if it's conjured by gentle wishes. And now, dear listener, it's breakfast time. No, not for you. Not yet. Don't be ridiculous. You still have several rounds of other people's toast to prepare before you so much as think about digesting anything. Let's walk through what this lovely ritual looks like. First, the fires must be stoked. The kitchen fires, the dining room fires, the drawing room fires, and possibly the bedroom fire of lady someone or other who insists on rising with warmth. A phrase which here means she wants a small inferno roaring before she sets foot on her imported rug. You, meanwhile, are already sweating in 3 layers of wool and haven't eaten since dusk yesterday. Then comes the bread, homemade, naturally. Not by you, but by the cook, who woke up even earlier than you and now radiates the quiet power of someone who can ruin your life with a look. You will assist by buttering toast in such a way that it doesn't look too buttery, but also not dry. You are aiming for an invisible line of satisfaction that no one will articulate and everyone will punish you for crossing. There will be tea, there will be coffee, there will be different teas and specific coffees. One lady of the house may prefer a delicate Ceylon with no cream, while the gentleman wants his coffee robust, strong, but not bitter, which means nothing and everything. Heaven help you if you mix up the sugar bowls. There's white sugar for the family and brown sugar for servants, and if you forget which spoon goes where, you might cause an incident that will be whispered about in drawing rooms for generations. Now comes the laying of the table, silver polished so brightly it could reflect your under-eye bags back at you, napkins folded precisely, no casual triangles here. You'll arrange everything to military precision, forks on the left, knives on the right, the mystery spoon that no one uses but must always be there because it balances the composition. There's a bread plate, a jam spoon, a butter dish that must never be confused with the marmalade saucer, lest you invoke the wrath of tradition. Now finally, the upstairs bell rings. They're ready. The family descends, or drifts, or glides. The daughters swan in, floating on clouds of perfume and silk, as if they haven't just emerged from 11 uninterrupted hours of sleeping in a room heated to subtropical levels. The men arrive later, yawning performatively, muttering about the papers and the markets and other abstract morning noises that sound important, and now they feast. We're talking kedgeree, an aggressively British invention involving rice, eggs, fish, and moral superiority. There's fried kidneys, eggs prepared 4 different ways, devilled ham, toast racks overflowing with golden slices that somehow never cool, and seasonal fruit that was almost certainly picked by someone named Thomas in the freezing dark 3 hours ago. And you stand behind a chair, still, silent, watching. You do not sit, you do not eat, you do not blink too loudly. Sometimes, if the butler is generous and the cook is in a good mood and the stars align just right, you may be permitted, later, to consume what's left. Not the good stuff, of course. You'll get the crusts, the overcooked eggs, the bacon rind no one touched. It will be tepid. It may be slightly pre-chewed, emotionally, if not literally, and it will taste like dignity being politely eroded. If you are a scullery maid, your breakfast might consist of weak tea and yesterday's bread. If you're very lucky, you might get porridge, not the warm, cinnamon-laced kind we imagine in cosy period dramas. Number this is institutional porridge. Porridge that could be classified as a non-Newtonian substance. It slumps on the plate like regret and tastes of beige. Now don't get too comfortable, because while they eat, you're preparing for second breakfast. No, again, not for you. This one is for the children. The children of the house wake later than their parents because childhood is sacred and must be protected from such horrors as punctuality or self-awareness. They will be served lighter fare, boiled eggs, toast soldiers, and moral lessons delivered via passive-aggressive glances from their governess. You will assist by standing within earshot, but outside blame range. If someone spills jam, it's your fault. If someone cries because their yolk is too runny, it's your fault. If the toast feels sad, it's somehow still your fault. By the time your breakfast, your real breakfast, arrives, it's not even breakfast anymore. It's a grey meal, somewhere between brunch and despair, eaten standing up, in the scullery, near a draught, next to the dog, who may or may not also be eating your portion. And just as you take the first bite, barely toasted, mostly cold, guess what? The bell rings again. Someone upstairs wants hot water, or a letter delivered, or they remembered they wanted toast after all, and your crumbs. Well, the dog seemed hungry anyway. And just as you take the first bite, barely toasted, mostly cold, guess what? The bell rings. Of course it does. Someone upstairs has remembered, in a half-conscious flicker of entitlement, that they want hot water, or softer butter, or their egg flipped. You place the crust back down. It's no longer edible, emotionally. The dog, with whom you now share an unspoken understanding of class struggle, inches closer. You let it have the toast. The dog wags once. You are equals now. Back upstairs, breakfast continues in a kind of ceremonial leisure that almost feels designed to taunt you. Time slows. You hover near the periphery with a teapot, not quite a person, not quite furniture, invisible until someone wants more milk, or less milk, or just to test whether they still have control over another living soul before noon. Eventually, the family finishes. They retreat to drawing rooms or letters or carriages bound for idle errands. You remain. There's clearing to be done. The toast racks, the spoons, the exact arrangement of the napkin rings must be documented before they're stored, in case anyone ever inquires. No one ever does. And only now, when the fire has burned low, when the butter has gone shiny, when the eggs have congealed into something philosophically opposed to joy, only now are you permitted to eat. And by eat, we mean scavenge. It's a graceful ritual, really. You and the other servants circling the debris of the breakfast table like cautious vultures with excellent posture. You get the ends of the toast, the tea that's steeped a bit too long, the half-bitten bacon someone decided they weren't in the mood for, a cold potato that's somehow both overcooked and underseasoned, a sliver of jam. No plate, of course. You eat standing, quietly, as if trying not to wake the ghosts of etiquette. There is no conversation. You don't talk at meals because meals aren't breaks. They're brief pauses in the day where your hands are momentarily empty and your jaw is otherwise occupied. Sometimes you look around and wonder, does anyone remember what hunger feels like as a sensation instead of just a baseline state of being? You wouldn't dare say that aloud. You wouldn't dare say anything because someone is always listening. And the bell could ring again at any moment. And if it does, you'll go. That's the rule. That's the rhythm. That's life down here. You eat in the gaps. You rest on your feet. You learn to survive on crusts and quiet and the hope that maybe tomorrow they'll forget to finish their bacon again. Let's talk about rest. Not sleep, mind you, rest. The idea of sleep implies a kind of luxury, a gentle unwinding, a warm bath, a soft bed, perhaps a candle flickering on the nightstand, and a book you'll pretend to read before drifting off into dreams. You don't sleep. You shut down, like a lantern with a cracked wick, flickering out for a few stolen hours in a cold room that smells vaguely of starch and despair. Because the day doesn't end when the family goes to bed. That's just intermission. There are fires to put out, literally. You extinguish them with sand because letting them burn would be wasteful, and letting the house catch fire would be frowned upon. Ashes are cleaned, candles trimmed, slippers aligned with military precision at the foot of each bed, just in case someone wakes up at 3 a.m. with the sudden need to pace dramatically in soft footwear. You tiptoe through corridors like a guilt-ridden ghost. Your workday ends only once every possible task has been anticipated, completed, inspected, redone, and then denied ever being necessary in the first place. By now, it's past midnight. You descend into the servants' quarters, a series of stone rooms dimly lit and perpetually damp. There is no fanfare, no congratulations. Just a mutual, unspoken understanding among your fellow staff. Well, we're not dead yet. You remove your shoes with the kind of reverence reserved for relics. Your feet hum with the ache of having stood still for 14 hours, which is somehow worse than walking. Your bed is not a bed. It is a thin, wheezing mattress on a wooden frame that creaks like it regrets existing. Your blanket is made of wool, friction, and childhood trauma. It smells faintly of potatoes, which is odd because you sleep nowhere near the kitchen. There's no turning in for the night, only collapsing sideways and hoping no one needs anything before sunrise. But someone might, because there are night bells. Yes, even in sleep, you are on standby. There are cords, actual cords, attached to bells that ring in the servants' hall if a member of the household requires something in the night, like water or a different pillow, or the comforting knowledge that someone else is more tired than they are. So you lie there on your lumpy cot, fully clothed, one ear tuned to the corridor and the other squashed flat against a pillow filled with hay or maybe betrayal. Your dreams, when they come, are weird. They involve laundry, or you're endlessly scrubbing something that won't come clean, or you're trying to catch a plate that fell in 1843 and is still falling. You wake up unsure whether you slept at all or just blinked too long, and before your brain even reboots fully, you hear it. The first bell. 5 a.m. It's time. Back into the corset, back into the boots, back into the day. There is no snooze button. There is only you, the cold floor, and another 16 hours of smiling politely while being scolded for the toast being slightly too enthusiastic. Let's be honest. If you didn't find some way, any way, to cling to a sliver of morale, you'd walk straight into the root cellar and never come back. And so, in a system engineered to wring every ounce of usefulness from your exhausted bones, your brain begins to adapt. It recalibrates your definition of success because you're not getting a promotion, or a raise, or thanks, or eye contact. But you might, if the stars align, manage one of the following. Win number 1. Finishing a task without being yelled at. It's rare, but every once in a while you fold a sheet so perfectly it could be used to measure parallel lines. You smooth it down, admire your handiwork, and wait. No one says a word. No one even notices. But that silence, that's your gold medal. That's your standing ovation. You whisper to yourself, "Still got it," and then immediately trip over a mop and spill vinegar everywhere. But for one brief second, you knew peace. Win number 2. Seeing the baby smile. You're not allowed to play with the baby, obviously. That's for the governess and the lady of the house when she's feeling performative. But sometimes you're nearby, fluffing pillows or rearranging flowers, and the baby, who doesn't yet know about class systems, locks eyes with you and grins, and for a second you feel like a person. Then it vomits, but still a win. Win number 3, getting to eat something hot. You don't get hot food. That's a rule so deeply embedded in the hierarchy, it might as well be carved into the pantry door. But sometimes, when cook isn't looking, or when she's actually in a decent mood, which occurs roughly every 3rd lunar eclipse, she slides you a small something, a warm biscuit, a ladle of stew, a potato that hasn't gone cold yet. You eat it in silence, in a corner, like a fugitive. You don't even chew properly. You just let the warmth sit in your mouth like a memory of comfort, then swallow before someone decides they want it back. Win number 4, catching gossip before it hits the drawing room. You hear things. You're supposed to pretend you don't, but you do. You always do, because the walls are thin, and people assume servants don't have ears, or intelligence, or emotional bandwidth. So when you catch a whiff of scandal, say the master's cousin who's been gambling with someone else's money, or the new maid who arrived already pregnant, you log it away, not for blackmail, just for sport, for the satisfaction of knowing something before the rest of the world finds out. It's like owning the early edition of the newspaper, except all the stories are slightly shameful and deeply British. Win number 5, a Sunday off, once every 8 weeks. You get 1 day off, not weekly, not bi-weekly, once every 2 months. That's the policy. And if it rains on that day, tough. If you catch a cold, too bad. If the family decides to throw a surprise luncheon that just happens to land on your Sunday, congratulations, your time is now a gift to the nation. But on the rare occasion that your day off actually happens and no one has the audacity to interfere, it is glorious. You wake up after sunrise. You wear shoes that don't involve buckles. You go to a park and sit. Just sit. Like a civilian. Like someone whose hands are not cracked from lie and whose dreams are not haunted by irregular napkin folds. And maybe, just maybe, you buy yourself something. A sweet. A second-hand book. A coffee you can't really afford. Something small but indulgent. Something that reminds you that you exist outside the job, that your body is not government property, that your life has edges not defined by brass polish and stair etiquette. You return to the house later that day pretending it was boring. You must never appear too joyful. Joy implies independence. Independence implies danger. But inside, you hold on to the memory of that bench, that biscuit, that baby's accidental smile, whatever it was that made you feel for 10 seconds like a person again. Because those moments, they're not much, but they're yours. And in a house where nothing belongs to you, not your time, your food, your space, your breath, Those tiny wins matter more than anyone above the stairs will ever understand. By now, you're deep in it. You've learned the rules. You've swallowed your pride. You've ironed socks and delivered toast and wiped boot mud off a carpet that definitely wasn't your fault. And maybe, just maybe, you've started to notice the other players in this strange, invisible game. Because you're not alone down here. There's a whole underworld of servants, each with their own loyalties, secrets, and survival tactics. This isn't Downton Abbey. No one's holding candlelit heart-to-hearts about life and dreams. But below stairs, there is a delicate social ecosystem, and if you want to survive without imploding, you'd better learn to navigate it. Half the Cook, dictator of the underground. She has been here longer than anyone remembers. She knows every squeaky floorboard, every drafty window, and every single one of your weaknesses. She doesn't speak much, but when she does, it echoes. One word from her can get your lunch portion mysteriously reduced for a week. A raised eyebrow, that's two. She never smiles, unless she's poisoning a pie. Allegedly, no proof. Still, you don't cross her. You nod. You compliment her jam. You wash her knives like they're sacred relics, and if she gives you the burnt edge of the pudding, you eat it and say thank you. Senior housemaid, the real boss. She's not technically your superior, but she might as well be. She's about 32 but looks 47, moves like a hawk, and has already folded 17 napkins before you've managed to lace your boots. She has a ledger in her head of everyone's mistakes, yours included. She'll never tattle to the lady of the house unless she absolutely has to. No, she's smarter than that. She'll remind you with a whisper, just loud enough for shame. You missed a spot. That's the Tuesday linen. Again with the sighing. But, and this is crucial, if you ever find yourself sobbing in the broom closet, she'll knock twice, slide in a handkerchief, and say nothing. She remembers what it's like to be new. She just doesn't have time for it. The footman, Jim Bro of 1883. He is large. He is loud. He is convinced that lifting silver trays counts as upper body training. You're not entirely sure what he does outside of standing still and waiting for someone to call for wine, but he always seems to be sweating, flexing, or bragging about how he carried a roast the size of a Labrador up the servant stairs without stopping. He once winked at you during a particularly long dinner service. It was unsettling, but to be fair, when the butler accused you of misplacing a decanter, he covered for you, said it was already polished, said he remembered. Lied like a professional, so now you owe him, forever. He'll bring it up every time you pass in the corridor. The rival, your mirror, but meaner. There's always one. Maybe they arrived just after you, maybe just before. Either way, you're the same age, same job, same tired eyes. But they have the uncanny ability to make you feel like you've already failed. They dust faster, they curtsy deeper, their boots are always a bit shinier, and they somehow know all the family members' names and their dietary requirements. You say, "Good morning," and they respond with a smile that says, "I hope your teacups are misaligned." And yet, sometimes when no one's looking, they'll quietly correct your mistake, cover your tracks, tip you off about an inspection. Because rivalry only runs skin deep when you're both being chewed alive by the same system. And then there's burnout, the real constant. It doesn't come on suddenly. There's no dramatic collapse, no weeping at the hearth while dramatic music swells. It's slower, meaner, less poetic. Burnout arrives when you find yourself forgetting your own birthday, but remembering the precise way the lady of the house likes her bath towels folded half again, then trifold with a twist. It's when you catch yourself smiling automatically when scolded. It's when you stop bothering to whisper complaints in the laundry room because the walls didn't listen last time, and they won't this time either. You're not angry anymore, or even sad. You're just mechanical. Doing the work, keeping the peace, trying not to imagine what it would feel like to throw a silver tray frisbee style across the parlour just to hear it clang. But even burnout, weirdly, can be communal. Someone passes you a cup of lukewarm tea without saying anything. Someone else does your share of sweeping without telling you. You nod, they nod. No one's thriving, but no one wants to see anyone else fall apart either. Because if one of you goes down, you all get more chores. These relationships, grudging, silent, codependent, are what hold you together. You don't get to choose your colleagues, but in a world that barely sees you, they're the only ones who do. They are your only witnesses to your good days, to your cracked hands, to your victories, tiny as they are, and to the moments when you think, I can't do this anymore. And somehow, with a nod or a grunt or a mismatched pair of freshly mended socks, they remind you that you can. South, how are we feeling? Still think you could have made it? Still holding on to that fantasy where you glide down the servant stairs in a neat apron, maybe win the respect of the butler, maybe even charm the lady of the house with your witty banter and excellent handwriting? Let's review. You wake up before the sun. You sleep next to a wall, not in a bedroom, not even a cot really, just a glorified cupboard with optimism. You get barked at for existing too loudly, then scolded for not existing quickly enough. You iron socks. You starch collars that will never be worn by you. You polish shoes you're not allowed to touch unless it's Tuesday and you're wearing gloves. You survive on potatoes, lukewarm tea, and the faint, haunting memory of someone else's bacon. You memorize bell codes. You wash lace. You carry soup upstairs like it's a live grenade. Your personal victories include not fainting, eating something that's still warm, and being ignored just enough that it counts as a compliment. And your social life? A thrilling combination of eye rolls, broom closet confessions, and wondering whether the footman is flirting with you or just doesn't know your name. Still sound dreamy? No, of course not. But here's the thing, the people who did survive this, real servants, real people with real lives, they made it work. Somehow, they built quiet kingdoms of endurance under systems that were never built for them. They found laughter in the laundry, tenderness in stolen seconds, and meaning in tasks so repetitive they could have been designed by a very bored Victorian robot. And they did it all while standing on stone floors, in wool uniforms. Without coffee, you wouldn't last a day, but they did. They lasted years. They aged too fast. They laughed too little. They worked too hard. And when they finally did leave, if they left, they were mostly forgotten. But somewhere, someone still remembers them. And now, so do you. So the next time you romanticize the good old days, take a moment. Think of the girl with the cracked knuckles who folded the napkins at 4 a.m. The boy who trimmed candle wicks in silence while the guests debated poetry. The cook who ruled the kitchen with burnt fingers and bad knees. The chambermaid who dreamed of bacon and got a slice of stale bread instead. Think of them, and then think, would I really trade my soft pillow and electric blanket for this? Number. No. You wouldn't, because you, my dear listener, are not made of whatever strange material Victorian servants were forged from. You're soft, you're modern, you're delicate in the best way. You deserve lattes and thermostats and Sundays, but it's still kind of wonderful to peek behind the curtain, to wander through the soot and starch and servant bells just long enough to appreciate the bed you're lying in now. So go ahead, shift under the covers. Feel the warmth, the freedom, the complete lack of call bells ringing you into service. And as you drift off, maybe dream not of being a Victorian servant, but of being the one who got away. Good night, fellow escapee. Sleep soft. The only bell that rings now is the one you set yourself. And tomorrow morning, when you wake up, you don't have to polish a single spoon. If you've ever wished your calculator made a satisfying clack every time you added a number, if you've longed for your math to involve more finger dexterity and fewer lithium-ion batteries, if you believe that the true joy of arithmetic lies not in answers but in the slow, deliberate journey toward them, then may I humbly introduce you to a device so old it predates sarcasm, a device so enduring it has survived conquest, collapse, and the invention of the smartphone. It is called the abacus. And it is a rectangle. with beads. There are no touchscreens, no blinking lights, no apps, updates, pop-ups or firmware. It does not connect to Bluetooth. It cannot crash. It cannot access TikTok. It is, in essence, a wooden skeleton of pure, unapologetic logic. And against all odds, in a world addicted to convenience and electrical charging ports, this relic of ancient civilization still works. Somewhere right now, in a quiet classroom in Tokyo, a child with serious eyebrows and suspiciously fast fingers is calculating long division by sliding beads, up and down, on a frame that looks like it should be used to dry tiny laundry. And here's the disturbing part. They're faster than your calculator. They are, in fact, faster than you at math. With beads, which is either a beautiful testament to timeless design or a sign that we've been doing everything wrong since the invention of the battery. You see, the abacus does not do the math for you. It does not compute. It does not auto-sum or calculate tip. It simply holds space for your thinking. It offers, without judgment, a place for your numbers to rest, between one slide and the next. In the vast timeline of human innovation, the abacus sits quietly between stick and steam engine. It is the middle child of tools, neither flashy nor forgotten, too old to be modern, too effective to die. Archaeologists have unearthed versions of it everywhere, in the ashes of Rome, the temples of Mesopotamia, and the bustling trade halls of ancient China, where merchants, presumably with very clean fingernails, slid their way into prosperity one bead at a time. This is not just a counting tool. This is not just history. This is an idea, a philosophy, carved in wood, painted in lacquer, and held together by tension, time, and the satisfying click of something done correctly. And tonight, as you drift off into the dusty corridors of ancient arithmetic, we'll explore how this unassuming frame of beads became one of the most quietly resilient technologies the world has ever known. Let us begin with a single bead and a very, very slow addition problem. Let's imagine, just for a moment, that we're standing in the dust of ancient Mesopotamia. No, not on a tour bus, no sun hat, no sunscreen, just sandals, a linen tunic, and the peculiar weight of being alive at the very beginning of everything. The wheel is new, writing is new, cities are new. And suddenly, for the first time in history, humans have too many things to keep track of. Too many sheep, too much barley, too many jars of oil being exchanged for too many bricks. It's chaos, really. Beautiful, muddy, bustling chaos. Merchants mutter as they count goods using tokens and scratches on clay. Scribes, trained in the sacred art of not messing things up, carve cuneiform into tablets while dodging the occasional goat that's wandered into the marketplace. Numbers, it seems, are becoming more than just sounds. They're becoming civilization's secret code. And keeping track of them, that's becoming a full-time job. But writing numbers in clay is slow, fragile, and there's the matter of someone misreading your ones for your sevens, or accidentally baking the price of a donkey into a receipt for lentils. So what do humans do, as they always do, when their fingers aren't enough? They build a tool, simple, physical, reliable, something they can touch, feel, and trust. At first, it's just a counting board, a flat surface with lines or grooves. Stones are slid from one side to the other, pebbles representing units, tens, hundreds. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the subtle scrape of stone across polished wood, the first whispers of arithmetic. Now let's drift east. Centuries pass, dynasties rise, winds shift, and suddenly we're in ancient China. Here, the counting board evolves. It becomes more than a flat slab. It stands tall, on legs. It gains rods, beads, rows, and rules. It becomes the Suan Pan. You'll want to remember that name. It sounds like a breakfast item, but it's actually the Chinese word for abacus. The Suan Pan is elegant in its design. Each vertical rod holds beads, 2 on top, 5 below. The top ones are worth 5 each. The lower ones, 1, a flick of the thumb, a tap of the forefinger, and you're adding, subtracting, even multiplying, not with a machine, but with your hands and your mind. And the beautiful part, there's no batteries. No loading screen, no settings menu accidentally set to Norwegian. The abacus does exactly what it's supposed to do. It helps you think faster than you can write. It externalizes memory, and in the hands of a trained operator, it is blindingly fast. But this isn't just a tool for math wizards or imperial tax collectors. No, in the bustling markets of the Tang dynasty, a shopkeeper uses one to tally up purchases. In the halls of Confucian schools, students practice arithmetic with quiet focus and swift fingers. And in Buddhist monasteries, scholars debate philosophy and logic with a bachi close at hand. We haven't even reached Japan yet, or Korea, or the medieval Islamic world. Because like so many good ideas, the abacus refuses to stay put. It travels, adapts, evolves. The swanpan becomes the soroban in Japan, slimmer, sleeker, refined for base 10 calculation. In Korea, it's the jupan. In Russia, the shoti. Each culture shapes it to its own needs, just as language shapes thought. And yet, through it all, its essence remains unchanged. It is still, at its core, a frame of beads. An idea made tactile. A kind of math you can hear. Click, clack, solve. And just think, while steam engines were rumbling into the Victorian age and ticker tape was flying off Wall Street floors, thousands of people in the East were still calmly calculating on wooden beads, faster than many typists could punch in numbers. In a world obsessed with speed, the abacus moved with grace. In a world drowning in noise, it remained silent. In a world where memory failed, it remembered. And even today, yes, today, you can still walk into a classroom in parts of China or Japan and see children sliding those same beads. Not as a novelty, not as nostalgia, but because it still works, and sometimes old ideas are the best ones. Let's imagine what it truly means to move a bead, not in the dull math class sense, but in the way a poet might describe it after drinking too much plum wine while watching candlelight flicker across an old wooden floor. Because sliding a bead is not just arithmetic, it's philosophy, it's prayer, it's emotional exfoliation. Sliding one bead upward is like placing a single raindrop into the palm of time itself and watching it become a memory. To push a bead down is to gently convince gravity to reconsider its priorities. Each rod is not just a placeholder of units. No. Each rod is a tiny stage, and the beads, performers in a wordless ballet, waltzing between silence and significance. You see, the top bead isn't just worth 5. It's worth 5 moments you never said what you meant to say. And the 4 bottom beads? They're the years you lost to distraction. When a bead moves, it doesn't click. It exhales, like bamboo wind chimes made of math and memory. You don't do calculations on an abacus. You ask it questions, softly, like whispering through the slats of a paper screen to someone you once loved. And when the answer comes, it doesn't shout. It doesn't appear on a glowing screen in neon green. It arrives like a cloud that's decided to take the shape of something you almost recognize, and then disappears again. Some say it's a tool, but that's like saying the moon is a flashlight. The abacus is less a calculator, more an oracle that refuses to be rushed. Each flick of a finger is a note in an unplayed song. Each reset of the frame is the wiping of a chalkboard in a dream you barely remember. To master the abacus is not to master math. It is to accept that numbers are just thoughts in costume, and that when you count, really count, you're not finding the total, you're finding yourself. So take a breath. Imagine your mind as a lacquered frame, your thoughts, small polished beads, warm from use. And as each one slides into place, you feel a little more centered, a little more inevitable. Because in the end, what is the abacus? Just a gentle reminder that every great answer once began with a quiet little click. The abacus is older than sliced bread. Actually, it's older than unsliced bread. It predates the concept of numbers as we know them, and may have once been used to calculate how many goats one could spiritually owe a neighbour during a full moon. Historians estimate that the abacus has existed in some form for over 2,500 years, which means technically it has outlived every single hairstyle trend known to humankind, including powdered wigs, bowl cuts, and whatever was happening in the 1980s. There are records of Roman merchants using pebbles in sand to tally transactions. This was called a calculi, from which we get the word calculate, and also the word calculus, which is how many promising dreams died quietly in high school. At one point in ancient China, a skilled abacus operator was more valuable than a small horse. Not a great horse, mind you, but like a solid C+ horse. Dependable, a little squeaky, possibly named Leonard. It's been said by someone somewhere, probably in an echoey hallway, that a truly elite abacus user can perform division faster than someone using a calculator, which is either a testament to the power of human concentration or evidence of time travelers among us. Keep your eye on Linda from accounting. In Japan, the abacus is called the soroban, and in some schools, children are still trained to visualize an invisible soroban in their heads. Yes, you heard that right. They do the math by imagining the abacus. This is either incredibly impressive or a socially acceptable form of hallucination. A soroban competition once featured a dramatic head-to-head between a teenage mental abacus prodigy and a man with a state-of-the-art calculator. It was over in seconds. The calculator blinked. The prodigy did not. It is rumoured that the real reason the abacus has remained relevant in some circles is because it never runs out of batteries, never needs Wi-Fi, and can survive a minor house fire if you're lucky. Also, if someone breaks into your house, a metal-framed abacus doubles as a mildly threatening blunt object, which cannot be said of your phone's calculator app. And here's something else that no one asked. If you line up every bead on a standard abacus and flick them all at once, you create a sound so satisfying that ancient accountants once described it as the sound of divine balance. Or maybe that was just Kevin again, from procurement, making things up. Either way, this ancient device has seen kingdoms rise, markets fall, empires collapse, and lunch counters reopen, all while staying exactly the same. Unmoved, unplugged, unbothered. In short, the abacus is not just a calculator, it's a passive-aggressive reminder that even in a world of smartphones, lasers and space tourism, a few beads on sticks are still somehow doing just fine. In a world where your phone is obsolete before you even peel off the factory screen protector, the abacus somehow continues. Your phone battery dies after 6 hours. The abacus? It runs on existential dread, ambient patience, and fingers that have seen things. Your laptop crashes when you open 2 tabs and dare to breathe. The abacus, meanwhile, has never once frozen, glitched, lagged, or prompted a forced update during a critical moment. It has no operating system. Its last patch was in 1634, and it was made of lacquer. Tablets break, apps crash, passwords are forgotten. But an abacus? You can drop it down the stairs, use it as a serving tray, let your toddler chew on it, and it will still calculate the square root of 81 without judgment. And yet, there it is, still used in parts of Japan, still lovingly practiced in China, still sitting on the desks of certain very serious accountants in Southeast Asia. Even some banks, yes, banks, use them for tasks too delicate or too important to trust to electricity. Let that sink in. Somewhere in Osaka, a bank teller is whisper counting beads to calculate your interest rate, while your credit card app back home crashes because Mercury is in retrograde. In a modern classroom in Tokyo, a child is being trained to visualize an abacus in their head. Not just use it, not just hold it, visualize it. They close their eyes, they see beads, they slide them in their mind. It's math, but it's also Jedi training. Meanwhile, you're here Googling how many cups in a litre for the 4th time this week. Some abacus users are so fast, They're banned from math contests. They are a threat to calculators, a nightmare for spreadsheets, and a complete mystery to modern teenagers who think math should only happen inside apps with cat animations and high scores. Compare that to your smart fridge, which is currently trying to connect to the Wi-Fi again for the 37th time today, and yet can't even remember how many eggs are inside it. The abacus doesn't need signal. It doesn't need updates. It doesn't even need your respect. It's not trying to be your friend. It won't tell you the weather. It won't play your favorite playlist. It won't notify you of anything, ever. And yet it sits there, a wooden rectangle filled with tiny beads, just ready, quiet, menacing, like the Clint Eastwood of arithmetic. They say the abacus is obsolete, and maybe it is. But you know what else is obsolete? Common sense, decency, and being able to do math in your head without crying a little. So maybe, just maybe, the abacus is right where it belongs. Still alive, still clicking, still judging your phone's 7% battery warning from across the centuries. It's the tortoise that watched the hare sprint ahead, trip on a charging cable, and get stuck in a reboot loop. It's the equivalent of a candle that refuses to go out, while your smart light bulb refuses to turn on unless you update your firmware, confirm your login, and allow access to your soul. Even your smartwatch gets confused about time zones. The abacus, it knows exactly what time it is, bead time, which is eternal, motionless, and somehow more dependable than atomic clocks. There's something oddly reassuring about a device that doesn't care who you are. The abacus does not glow, it does not buzz, chirp, ding, or vibrate. It never updates, it never asks for Wi-Fi. It doesn't need your thumbprint, a software patch, or two-factor authentication. It does not ping you at 3 a.m. asking if you're still there. It always assumes you are. You don't need to charge it, back it up, sync it, or bless it with a factory reset after an emotional breakdown. It never crashes, except metaphorically, perhaps when dropped dramatically by a frustrated merchant. And even then, it just sits there, beads askew, silently judging nothing. An abacus never tells you what it can't do. It simply offers what it does. It's not multitasking. It's not streaming. It's not listening in the background. It's just counting, faithfully, silently, endlessly, like a lighthouse that doesn't mind if you never visit. It just keeps shining, bead by bead, row by row, in calm repetition. There's an elegance in how dumb it is, but not dumb like useless, dumb like serene, like a monk sitting on a mountain who happens to be excellent at math. It never argues with you. It won't auto-correct your figures. It won't suggest a shortcut or recommend a YouTube tutorial. It won't ask you to try premium. You slide, it counts. You stop, it waits. That's the deal. And when everything else is racing forward, algorithms, microchips, neural networks, learning your sandwich preferences, the abacus remains unmoved. It has no FOMO. It's not worried about becoming obsolete or losing its job to AI. It knows it's already won by refusing to compete. And when your brain has unraveled itself trying to keep up, when your eyes are dry from blue light, when you've opened 37 browser tabs and can't remember why, you can go back to the beads. You can sit in the stillness and let the rhythm of the abacus become your own. It won't solve all your problems, but it won't cause any either. It's not flashy, it's not fast, it's not fashionable, but it's faithful. It doesn't need you to believe in it. It's already there, waiting in the drawer, like an old friend who knows all your mental shortcuts and still lets you start from zero. And maybe, in a strange way, that's its quiet genius. Not in how it calculates, but in how it allows you to pause. Each bead you slide becomes a breath. Each row, a moment slowed down, each problem softened by the lack of urgency. Eventually, even your thoughts begin to follow its pace, sliding gently from question to question, resting in the space between answers. And maybe that's the real math, the quiet arithmetic of letting go. So if the world feels too loud, if your screens glow too bright, if your brain insists on running background apps you didn't authorize, close your eyes, picture the abacus, let it click softly inside your imagination, not solving, not proving, just being. And when you find yourself tangled in existential algebra, just remember, you don't always have to carry the one. You can leave it for the morning. The beads will still be there.